Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Women in Liberty panel here at PorcFest. I'm going to wait till Kat comes back around. Well, actually, I can tell my little story. People kind of cringe sometimes when you talk about women in liberty because they think it's like, oh no, this is a collectivist. She just wants to group all women and talk about discrimination or all kinds of other crap. But that's not really the case with me, I think. And I have a little story. As I was preparing for this panel, and I'm looking through at who I want to have come and talk, I wanted to have a variety of women that I think are interesting and awesome and don't necessarily get hurt all the time. While I was preparing for it, I ran across on Facebook this poll, and it was comprised of 100 people. Who would you most like to hear speak at PorcFest? And this was an official poll. I don't know who did it, and I don't want to know who did it because I'm not like pointing fingers at anybody. But out of the 100 names, 93 of them were men. 93. So out of the 7 that were women, one was Cynthia Chase. I don't know if anybody knows who Cynthia Chase is, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to come speak at PorcFest. She is the state rep that said that the Free Staters are the single biggest threat to the state, and that she and her other Democrats should work to restrict the freedoms that Free Staters like so that it makes it inhospitable for them to live here. So I'm pretty sure she's not going to be here. So I don't think she's really kind of a legitimate name. And now, so out of the remaining 6 that were there, 3 of them had girl in their title. Let's see, we had Libertarian Girl. Oh, sorry. Stand here. Is that better? We had Libertarian Girl, Token Libertarian Girl, and Prax Girl or somebody had Prax Girl? Okay. Which is fine, but really, like half of them are, the focus is girl. I don't want to dismiss them as not being women because they're certainly women, and I love having them be able to speak, and I love hearing those voices, but it just kind of has this focus that I think, there's other women. And then, out of the 3 remaining there, I had to Google some of them. Like, I actually went down the list of names because I was, like, terrified. I'm like, no, there's got to be more than 7. And I went through all the list of names that were questionable that I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's a woman. No. Oh, maybe that's a woman. No. Over and over again. And then I got down to the 7. But in my Googling who these people were, one of them was Amanda Billyrock, which also great, woman, awesome. I Googled her name in the image search, and it automatically put sexy with it. I didn't write sexy. It didn't come up as a suggestion. It just pulled up images of Amanda Billyrock sexy. I was like, what the fuck? Is this all people are looking for libertarian women? It is. The next one was Amanda Heard. Does anybody know who Amanda Heard is? Incredibly gorgeous actress. You pull up a picture of her, all it is her in bikinis. So there's one left. She actually made it. Mary Ruwart. It's the only other name. So what I wanted to do was, I'm just saying, I'm not, like I said, everybody thinks it's all about being collectivist. All I care about is it's not like even an equality thing. It's more of, I just want more women to be heard. I'm lucky that I actually get to be heard. People do listen to me. But there are other women out there, and tons of them. I mean, just look around this place. There are so many brilliant, beautiful, awesome liberty women that could be up here talking, besides just me and these lovely ladies. So I just wanted to have a discussion about how we could, I don't know, either listen more or get more women involved, or, and like I said, I hesitate to discourage the sexy version or the gorgeousness, and but I want those people, the libertarian girl, the token libertarian girl, the Prax girl, Mandy Billyrock. I want them to still be heard when they're 60, when they're 70, when they're 50 and don't look quite as good. So that's kind of what matters to me. But now I'd like to That's not what I meant. You're awesome, Carla. See? All right, well, so anyway, these are some interesting women that I think are awesome and I love, and that's why I wanted you all to hear about what they're doing in Liberty. And I'll start it down here with Kat. And you can just introduce yourself, or you can talk, or whatever you like.
Okay. I'll just start with an introduction. My name's Catherine Bleish. I currently live in Austin, Texas. I got involved in Ron Paul 2008 campaign back in '07. I was the delegate to the RNC. Really got involved in Republican Party politics in Missouri, where I used to live. Started fighting fusion centers, found my way out here to PorcFest, realized I'm an anarchist, not a statist, and that began a really interesting evolution for me. I got arrested out here at Liberty Forum in 2010. They were basically someone was doing civil disobedience. I'd never seen civil disobedience before, and they almost maced him in the face, and I was one of the last people in the middle of the road when all the backup showed up, so I got arrested, and it was really traumatizing for me, and I decided I couldn't keep up with all the politics and the police and just the really, really hard work that comes with traveling the country nonstop. You know, I didn't really have a home for about 9 months in 2010 because I was living out of my car, traveling the country, talking to people about fusion centers, visiting fusion centers, you know, doing open records requests, all that stuff. So now I live on a small farm in Austin, Texas, and we are working to teach people how to live more free, practical applications to freedom, instead of just talking about it, instead of asking for permission from elected officials, and really trying to lead by example and walk the walk. So we have a garden, we have chickens, we want to do goats as soon as we get back from PorcFest, and we are working on a project called Sovereign Living. It's one part of that is a blog website where, you know, anyone in the room is welcome to become a reoccurring blogger, a one-time blogger, if you're a gardener, if you do peaceful parenting, any of that sort of stuff. And we're also doing a reality-based educational show, which we premiered the first 2 episodes of here on Thursday, and there's been a lot of people coming up saying they want to see it. So we're going to be doing it again today at 6 o'clock here in this tent. So that's what I've done and where I am now. I'm Catherine. Welcome. Thank you for coming to this.
My name's Marian, and I feel a little out of place up here. But I came to libertarian thinking by accident, by way of Ron Paul, actually working for him. So I took a paycheck before I became a libertarian, so I don't apologize for that. Paying the rent. I'm a rent payer. My foray into politics actually came in high school, and I sued my school district, and that's something I can talk more about that may be another discussion time, but you can do that. When you're 18, you can sue your own school district, and it turned out to be a great decision. But let's see. I don't know. I worked for Ron Paul in 2012. I worked for Campaign for Liberty. Don't necessarily hold that against me either. And I don't know what else. I came from Christian conservatism, and I found that libertarianism is actually, it falls in line with free will, belief in religion and so forth, and you don't really need the state to play God either. So, good times. Rock on. My first PorcFest.
All right, I'm Jay Buzz Webb, and I don't have much voice today after the big gay dance party yesterday. That's what I do. Yeah, I'm the state chair for Outright Libertarians, the gay libertarians, and yeah, like Ron Paul got me here. 2007, I found out about Ron Paul and started, you know, championing that cause, and it kind of, I've lived in gay ghettos my entire adult life, and finally the circumstances came about that I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this Free State Project thing, because I came up for a Liberty Forum, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, I'm like in a room with so many like-minded people. I never get that in gay ghettos. Everybody's a flaming liberal, and so I came to my first PorcFest, and it was like, you know, I had been in New Hampshire all of 3 days at this point, and it was like, I don't see myself represented here. You know, I think libertarianism in general has a straight white guy problem, and not everybody that comes to this, you know, this sort of thinking is a straight white guy, and I think gay people naturally would be great candidates to come to Liberty because, there's a schism that happened in the 90s with gay people, and that's why they're all flaming liberals now, but that's neither here nor there. But there were a lot of anti-authoritarians in the gay movement when it was actually the gay liberation movement, not the gay rights movement. Now it's turned into gay rights. So I decided, I have to blame Angela Keaton at antiwar.com for pushing me into outright libertarians to get that going again. And the first gay dance party started out as a joke because I wanted to get a banner for outright libertarians, and I was going to throw this little party, put on some music. People come over, I'd get a keg, and then they'd write me checks, and I could get my banner finally. But next thing I know, somebody had invited every guest at PorcFest to come, and there was 300 yeses, and I was like, oh, I've really got to do this thing now. So that's one of the things I wanted to do because I wanted to kind of encompass all people. Of every stripe, every color, and every background, to feel welcome and, not be stuck with a straight white guy problem. Other than that, I like to shoot guns with the Second Amendment sisters and help those girls out when I can. And, here I am.
Hi, I'm Carla Garrick. I'm the president of the Free State Project. We finally got a woman on top of something. People actually often ask me how that happened, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a punishment. I'm just trying to figure out for what. So my journey started a little differently. I was born and raised in South Africa. So grew up during the apartheid era, so I grew up in a police state. And even if you were a white person in the police state, it's not an ideal condition for people to grow up under or to live under, of course. So when I was in college, I did some anti-apartheid stuff. At the time, I sort of thought, oh, the problem is we have a white government. And then we got a black government, and I was like, maybe the problem is government, right? So around that time, I was just finishing up law school. I'm also a recovering lawyer. It's been 10 years, 7 months since my last paperwork cut. I was in law school at the time in South Africa, and my parents had entered me and my boyfriend at the time and my sister into the green card lottery. So there's a lottery in America. It's called the Diversity Lottery. And I won the green card. And I was like, really? America thinks what they need to be more diverse is a white lawyer? Okay. So finished law school, got married on the sneak with my then boyfriend so he could get a green card too. We moved out here. We've been out here for almost 20 years now. About 10 years ago, 1999, we moved out in 96. So we hit the start of the .com bubble. We were living in San Francisco. I was working in-house for, Apple and Logitech. And then I have the tragic story about making the jump from a really safe company, and had I stayed there, I would be a millionaire, to, hey, let's go work at a startup. My husband was at a startup as well, and then in 2000, when the .com bubble burst, I had the misfortune of having to lay off 2,000 people, including myself, and my husband's company folded because they couldn't get second round VC funding, after having gotten $7 million in the first round. So the bubble days were awesome. So we decided to take a few years off and just go backpack through Southeast Asia and India. And during that time, that was really where my sort of more, I would say, intellectual journey started. I was like, what the hell just happened? Like things were going so well, and then suddenly, and it was like a plane crash. So started reading up a lot on Austrian economics, found Rothbard, found all those things. I'm a huge fan of Lou Rockwell's sites. It was really instrumental for me. Short little essays every day gives you a really good framework to deal on all issues when you're talking to people, from parenting to gay rights to how you see your school, sovereign living. All of those things are addressed, and the information is out there, and it'll help us hone our message better. So we moved out in 2008 from Manhattan to New Hampshire after having come to several Liberty Forums and PorcFests. I got suckered into planning PorcFest 2009. We had just moved out, and they were like, oh, we need a new organizer. Would you do it? So, the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. So I did it in 2009, 2010. I think that's really where we started to get a lot of momentum. We kind of put a face and personality on the event, in the sense that the first PorcFest I came to, it was 100 guys, 3 women. All the guys had long beards. Everyone was open carrying. I was a city girl. I was like, where the hell am I? I'm like, we may have some philosophy in common, but we don't have anything else in common. And so I'm always heartened when I look around, and I'm like, actually, you know what? We're doing a pretty good job. We're all starting to find each other. So in 2011, I believe, I became president. And sometimes they call me Queen Quill. I'm honored and flattered. That's all very sweet. But I also believe in regicide. So, if I'm not doing my job right, let me know.
You see, there's all kinds of women. They are pretty awesome. And I love your story about only having 3. Oh, I'm behind the pole again. But I also invited Megan here, who can't come up on stage, but can you come here? See, I'm not against the pretty young women.
Hi.
But you want to tell us what you're doing? No, she
can't. Okay. Is this better? All right. So my first PorcFest was actually in 2009, Carla. So you got me hooked. So it's funny because I came here to PorcFest just after getting involved in liberty activism in college once the Ron Paul campaign started. And PorcFest was my first anarchist experience because I came from the right. I came from a very religious perspective. And Pierre and Ademo had their motorhome diaries going on at the moment. And I was sitting in there one night hanging out with them, probably getting high or something, getting all philosophical. And I was like, oh, I've got this really funny bumper sticker, and it says, haha, joke's over, let's bring back the Constitution. And it was like crickets whenever I said it. And I thought it was funny at the time. And he's like, well, what is the Constitution to you? And started talking to me about that. So I had that first aha, third way of thinking moment. And that was probably the most eye-opening experience I had. And PorcFest is always that moment, no matter what year it is. I'm open. My eyes open to something new every single year, and it's so awesome to be able to come here. I was just talking to Pasha, who I work with him on Silver Circle, and we were saying, I wonder what PorcFest would be like 6 months from now if we didn't leave. Like, what would happen if we stayed here at Rogers Campground? Would we still all be high on PorcFest, love and freedom? Or what would this turn into? Because this technically is this community that we wish we could live in. So, and I think that's a moment where you can stop and, look within and say, okay, if I had to be here for 6 months, would I get sick of this person? Because it's sure, I can handle him. I can handle Evan ranting and raving for 1 week. But could I handle that for 6 months or my whole life? Right. So, and those are one of those moments where it's okay, you really have to look within and find out your own personal boundaries, your own just levels of just tolerance in general, because this is fun for a week, but I mean, if we really want to do this in the future, like, imagine what you need to do as opposed to what everyone else needs to do to accommodate to you. I was even thinking about that when this has nothing to do with women in liberty, does it? Oh, okay. but I was talking about just substance use here at PorcFest. I think people like to live free and indulge, and I'm A-okay with that. But I think people also need to remember that by trying things and putting yourself out of your comfort zone, you are burdening your fellow porcupines. Because if something were to happen to you, we're going to feel obligated to try to help you. But at the same time, you should know your limits. You should be able to take care of yourself. And don't burden people by trying too many substances or anything like that, or drinking too much. Come on, we're all adults here. Even if you're 16 years old, no excuse. If you're starting to feel wacky, just Colin, okay? Even if you're younger, just cut yourself off. So anyway, so I work with Silver Circle Movie. It's been really fun. It's been a long adventure. I had no idea I was going to be working for an In the Fed movie when I got out of college. Like, how I have like the most badass job. It's kind of awesome. Get to travel around, show movies, sell silver to 7-year-olds. And so far, so good. I mean, it's been a great marketing, skill building experience, and I've got to meet awesome people, and I get to come to PorcFest and not have to take vacation time. So that's fun. But yeah, I'm always open to chit chat with people. I definitely have evolved into someone who really likes to talk about like our interpersonal communications with each other. So I'm always happy to chat about that with anyone. But all these ladies up here have been a big inspiration to me too. So thanks for listening to my random rant.
Thanks for giving it. Oh, yeah. See, that's my thing. Is there's a variety of women, and I would like to see, and kind of addressing on what Megan said as far as what we can do as individuals. And the one thing I thought I could do as an individual is I could have a panel where I could hear more of these voices that I would like to be heard. I used to do a lot of complaining, and like endless complaint. Everybody gets so sick of me complaining about, oh, women aren't heard, and and they have that perspective that just must mean I'm a collectivist, or I want women's rights, or all kinds of things like this, which obviously is not my shtick. So I decided that what I was going to try to do is be that voice that I wanted to hear. But the thing is, I'm not really very comfortable being the voice. So I want to hear lots of voices. So now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, people are listening to me. People do hear me. Okay, I'm just one. I want lots of people. And I don't want them all to be like me. I want them to be different. They're different. So whenever I see an opportunity for a woman to speak up and be heard, I'm going to try to do my best to support that and have it more. And I'd like to have some kind of dialogue about how that can be done, or what speakers we do here. I'd like to see that list have more than, Mary Rohr and bikinis on it. And like I said, bikinis are fine, just more, just a little bit more, because there's just such a good variety of them out here. So, does anybody have any questions for any specific person up here, or about what they can do? As far as, or they have questions about, something that they're into, any women out here that are interested in either. Oh, there you go, sorry.
I want to know what Marian sued her school for and that process.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Political activism. That's one way to go.
The short answer is to pray at a football game out loud over a loudspeaker. And but I sued on free speech grounds, and because my issue was, as a student, that I was being forced to go to the school, that somehow I lose my constitutional rights because taxpayers paid for that microphone or something. So it actually was a huge lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court a few years before, called Doe versus Santa Fe. And Santa Fe is my hometown in Texas, and it's known for issues with prayer in school and the Klan. That's our distinction. But yeah, the short answer is to pray at a football game. But yeah, I sued because I said, why should I have to check my rights at the door? I feel like that's not a very good answer to explain what happened. But it was fun because as a Christian, I got called a bully and stuff like that. Like the majority religion was trying to push themselves on other people and proselytize, which is not the case. I didn't get up there and try to persuade people to accept Jesus Christ as their savior by any means. I mean, I would be happy if you did, but that wasn't the point of it. People would ask me, and I think this is where my thinking started going that way. I didn't know there was a place for me, so I was a Republican. I still vote Republican and all that, but people would ask me, what if a Muslim student won the election or whatever and became the person to give the message before the football game, and they wanted to pray to Allah for safety and I was like, where is the issue? Because to me it was the same, and when one religion has freedom, all of us have freedom, and I like to keep them out of my. Am I getting there? I sued over prayer in school, and I'm still a Christian, and I would do the same thing today. But it was quite an experience. You know, you think, oh, it's a Christian nation, whatever. People were very upset. And I got my first protesters. It was a good toughening experience. Like now, you know, now being a Ron Paul person, you're like, whatever. I mean, I'm in the minority, and I don't care. So, and Ron Paul is a Christian, so kind of interesting. From Texas.
I'm not going to make a comment on that, but I did want to make a comment on something Megan said. You know, what would it be like if we were here 6 months in? First of all, we'd be really, really cold. Because we're up in the mountains and there's a lot of snow up here, which of course is also an opportunity for skiing and all of those things. But the beauty of what the Free State Project is building is, hey, we can have that community, but let's do it all across the state. So you get to choose, oh, you know, I mean, and we've all got our buttons, right? There's some people here where I just hustle when they're like, Carla, I'm just like, I gotta go pee. Sometimes I really do if I did it to anyone here. But there are, you know, there's an opportunity where it's like it can be close, but it doesn't have to be too close, right? So, you know, you get to have this community, but you can only have it on Tuesday nights for 2 hours, you know, because you went to the meetup. Or once a month when we do MVP meetings, we have a turnout probably bigger than we are right here, 40, 50, 60 people. It's in Manchester. It's not just FSP focused. It's also the political arm, the NHLA, which is run by a woman as well, Eileen Landis, and that's the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. So you know, you get the privilege of being in a community with like-minded people, but you also have that sort of freedom to not have it be too close. But you know what? I think we should make that a reality TV show. 6 months of PorcFest.
Seeing as you're up here and you're having to deal with the gay community and the female community, maybe you could talk more about how you feel that you've been accepted or not accepted in the libertarian movement, not just at PorcFest, but outside in the real world.
Well, yeah, that is kind of a loaded question. Sometimes I really feel like a fish out of water because in the gay community, they think I'm a crazy right-winger, and they don't seem to understand that it's more to life than left versus right. They're still in that whole status mindset. As far as when I came to New Hampshire, oh my God, I was welcomed with open arms here, and everybody's been tremendously inviting. But you know what? Knowing what I do, I also have my detractors. They're people, but you're always going but you're always going to have that. If you put yourself out there to do something, you're always going to have people who are going to be detractors with whatever you do. So, you better get used to that. In New Hampshire, the gay community is very small and I don't know. I've got a very small gene pool here to choose from. So, I love New Hampshire. I had to go back to Cape Cod for work. I went back home, so I'm back in the gay ghetto. But they think I'm right wing crazy. Did that answer the question? Okay. Thank you.
I'm wondering if people have questions, if they could like come over somehow line up. So it sounds like you had more of the philosophical like shunning than anything else. Not so much people give you a hard time because you're gay or a woman. It's because of your philosophical. That's been my experience as well.
Hi, my question's for everyone on the panel. What are the most obnoxious things that men say to and about women in libertarianism?
Awesome question. And Oh. Well, I've got one. When back in Ron Paul, when the Ron Paul, election, or the Ron Paul election in 2008, but it was my first PorcFest. Well, but I wasn't here. I didn't come here. But it was my first PorcFest because my friend Todd Hudson, not Tom Hudson, but Todd Putterbow, wanted me to speak to a group of PorcFesters, like one of the outings that you all do here. So I was in Dover, and they met me in Dover, and I talked about the town, and because it's the town I grew up in, and how much I loved it, and you should all move there. Now I kind of like Portsmouth. But after that happened, I came here, and then I met lots of people, and they all connected on Facebook, and then I was added to about a gazillion hot libertarians groups. Libertarians have the best sex, libertarian women should be naked. I'm like every single freaking thing, and I kept going, please, Curtis, stop adding me to that.
Oh, no, you take that.
Let's see. Usually it's when I make the announcement for my party, I'll have at least 10, 15 guys. They're always, that shirt says no one knows I'm a lesbian. They're always talked about, oh yeah, well I'm a lesbian. All these men, and I'm like, okay, please stop thinking you're original. I've heard this my entire life. No, but that's probably the biggest one I get.
I actually have had fewer troubles with libertarian men than Republican men. So coming from a more conservative background, I think they think it's gentlemanly to treat a woman like she's not as smart, or I have been paid less, but I've come to ask for more. I guess I've felt more freedom in this than I have in other circles. So I don't like kitchen or sandwich jokes. Like, make me you might get I don't have a very good non-aggression principle, so you might get a knuckle sandwich. That's not really true. I've never been in a fight in my life that wasn't with one of my brothers, so no, I'd say I've been treated better, which is sad. And I have the most run-ins at church with people because I'm a libertarian, but I vote Republican or whatever, but I don't love George Bush. So there's been like that balance is hard. And so I think something I would like to do, since I have this platform for a second, is find a way to network the Christian libertarians a little more. Or if there is one, can you introduce me? Not just the men, but I'm kidding about that. It is a small pool of people when you're certain thing. I mean, the more specific you get about what you believe and what you want. But I would like to network more with because especially in New Hampshire, people are not politically conservative for religious reasons necessarily, which is fun. And I never met anybody like Buzz at a Republican event, so my life is richer So.
I think the most obnoxious thing has kind of subsided for me because I have children, but the whole creepy stalker thing that some Liberty dudes do, just because we're like-minded doesn't mean we want you in our pants, okay? So back off. It's kind of creepy. The like lurking, the donating massive amounts of money, it's creepy. When they're driving by your house at 3 a.m. and texting you that they know your boyfriend's not home, you will second guess the donating the money thing. It's creepy, okay? So yeah, I mean, just like women in liberty movement are just like women everywhere else. If they're not interested, back off. It's that simple. So I think that's the biggest creepy thing for me.
Yeah, but that's kind of my thing. It's like I totally agree. If they're not interested, back off. But if they're, I keep going behind the pole. But it's also try in the beginning to look at the women for beyond just the stalking them or how to look at them or whatever. And like I said, women are beautiful. I think women are beautiful, and I like that. That's not what I'm trying to demonize or anything. But just maybe instead of stalking her because you want to have sex with her, maybe stalk her because you want to hear what she has to say. Or just don't stalk her. Good point. Well, the donating money was kind of cool,
So, now that I've been part of the movement for several years, one of the things that's always bothered me is that there's relatively few women in the movement. For example, at like activist events and stuff that we go to, organized meetings, and when I try to recruit women to get involved, I often get told, "Well, there's not many women in the movement. Why is that?" And my answer used to be, "Well, because men are more logical, women are more emotional." And right, no, exactly. I was part of the problem. But at the same time, it's something that we keep hearing over and over again. And I think that a lot of women in the movement help perpetuate this notion as well, and they sort of take on this like badge of pride, saying, "Oh, I'm one of the logical ones." And I also think, to go back to an earlier comment that you were talking about, is I think that a lot of the men in the movement pay a lot more attention to the ones who have these gaudy Facebook pages, and they show a lot of themselves, and the women are partly to blame for that, but the men are as well, because they're really interested in that. And I've been fortunate that I've had a lot of conversations lately with people who have been challenging my assumptions, and they've thrown out other reasons why maybe women and minorities and gay and lesbian people aren't willing to rush towards liberty. And something that I've been starting to come to terms with is the fact that we're not very anti-oppression. We're anti-state. And we don't think about the oppression that happens in society when it doesn't come from the state. And when we as libertarians or anarchists don't stand up to messed up social conventions, and we don't stick up for people who are being oppressed just because it's not by the state, that those women, those minorities, those gay people say, well, why the hell do I want to be part of this movement if I'm going to have to sit here and continue to get abused and no one's going to stand up for me? So I want to hear your thoughts on that, and how we as a community can become better at calling out oppression when it's not from the state. Thanks.
I think you raise many valid points. But one thing I want to say, I think the for lack of a better term, penetration of the message is still so, it's just the tip. I'm talking. This is why I'm not allowed to be on panels. And I'm stone cold sober. I mean, the penetration of the message is really just starting to happen, right? And every year, I mean, Tennyson and I have known each other since 2007. He's the one black guy. He's not here right now. But he and I will joke every time because we'll actually be, hey, did you see? There's another black guy. Or, hey, did you see? Because we're excited, because that's one of the things you want, right? This idea to spread across all barriers. In terms of oppression, I think that's right, but the biggest battle right now is just to get people to see the state for what it is, right? That statism. But to do the reverse, to be on the personal level, hey, what are you experiencing? What kind of oppression do you experience in your life is actually probably the better way to go, because then you can do steps up. It's incremental based on their personal experience instead of that sort of Spock-like, I'm talking at you, how can you not see the truth? Take the red pill. You actually lead it through their own experiences. And, I hope year over year, I mean, we are getting more women. I mean, look at this room, and I don't think it's just because it's a women's panel. It might not be 50-50 yet, but we're getting close to a good balance. I would love to see way more gays and lesbians because we know they know how to throw the party, not to stereotype. Yes, touch us. So I don't know if, do you have something to add to that?
Well, we're talking about oppression. I say just scare them to death or shoot them in the face. Hey, no, I'm just joking, naturally, but for me, because I started something as silly as a party, I can't even tell you the number of people that have approached me and thanked me, and these are people who are not even necessarily out, or they felt that same thing I felt, like I am so alone in this, there's all these beautiful minds around me and like-minded people, but they're not people like me. I don't feel a common denominator there with, more gay and lesbian people. But now, oh my God, now there's gay people, there's, bisexuals, transgenders.
African-American immigrants?
Hey. But, and people have just come out of the woodwork to thank me for what I've done. So, in some ways we are winning. Oh, they're there too.
Free food brings people, but I guess, I don't know. I gave away a lot of pizza. Nope, I order pizza. I'm really good at ordering pizza. I'm not good at making sandwiches.
I think as a woman, the biggest sort of oppression that I have experienced since becoming a liberty activist is within the movement. There's some really sour attitudes. And when I first became a leader, I was 23 years old. I was running the Ron Paul grassroots headquarters in Kansas City. And we had some really, really, aggressive personalities that would take over meetings, would cause all these fights and arguments. And I didn't know what to do. I was young, which was kind of working against me when, my, quote, elders are arguing amongst each other. I didn't feel comfortable getting in the middle of it. And I was a girl, and I was, one of very few. And I think over the years, I figured out that shitty attitudes just cannot be welcome in our movement if we want to bring in other people, period. So at meetings, I don't tolerate bad attitudes. I don't tolerate name calling, bickering, drama. If it starts, I get up and walk out and I leave. And now that I've done enough leadership, I do get paid to facilitate meetings and consulting. And it's really embarrassing to the person causing drama when I get up and walk out and say, I'll take my paycheck and I'll see you at the next meeting, bye. And I leave. And it stops it right then. And it does not happen again, at least in my presence. So I think every woman in this room who has experienced this with the aggressive male personalities at our meetings, you need to feel empowered to stand up and say, stop, or I'm leaving. And it works. So that's my solution to that.
I was actually going to say that a similar thing about the attitudes, and because I don't really think of it as oppression, I think of it more as a negative attitude. And I'd like to get rid of that. I don't know. I will have to try that. I'm a little bit more passive than that. I'd probably go, oh, go ahead. Tell me something bad again. You know, I'm just not the get up and walk out kind. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Did I do something wrong? Yeah, well, apparently that's not my area to fix then. But you're doing it awesome. But I also I think it's an attitude, a negative attitude, and I think that that's something that we can all work on together, because we, just by communicating and being one-on-one and talking, because Carla's right. Look at all the women in this room. There's certainly growing, and that's when people say that there aren't enough women voices, like I say, and they'll say, well, it's because there aren't enough women in the movement, and I'm looking around and I see there's plenty of women in the movement, and oh yes, sorry.
I wanted to make a quick comment about kind of what Antonio said. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm gay. So I deal with a lot of black people, and I'm gay. So I deal with minorities, but I can't even use that word in this community because they're like, that's collectivist thinking. You can't talk about minorities. I'm almost not even allowed to acknowledge the fact that I'm a woman, that I'm gay, and that I live in a urban community, and I have to deal with a different approach for black people that are poor. It's a completely different approach. I just wanted to say that was on what he said, but I wanted to ask you guys, I'm a loud human personally, and I am working on being a loud human, actively. How do you keep, running around acting like a chicken and, doing what you want from impacting, being able to make an impact and being able to be taken seriously, being able to be free? Because, I'm working with Austin Peterson with the attitudes, by the way, and people, I know, see, you don't like him, that's fine. But other people come to me because I'm working with him, because I can deal with his attitude, and get an attitude with me because I'm working with him. It's just, I feel I think you guys know what I'm saying. So, if you guys could talk about, basically how to separate your personal freedom from your freedom activism, and how to not blend your personalities, maybe. Does that make sense? And basically the attitudes, but you kind of addressed it, but it didn't get to down that way.
Well, I think everybody should just work on being themselves, and that's why I think the best thing you can do is not to, not separate it.
I agree. I think living your life by example is the biggest inspiration to people. Your words are pretty meaningless. Your actions mean a lot. So don't worry about your words. Don't worry about running around with a chicken with your head cut off, because ultimately that doesn't work. Just be yourself and do what you're passionate about, and people are going to look at you and go, why is she so happy? What is she doing? How do I do that? How do I get that sort of freedom? And to touch on, cultural oppression, I do think that's a really big issue, and something that's going on down in Austin. The Peaceful Streets Project is really involved with the east side of the community, and I think it's one of the only liberty groups in the nation that is really reaching out to those disenfranchised. Bill agrees. So, there are young black kids who are murdered by the Austin Police Department every year. And where's the liberty movement with that? They're not out there, except now that the Peaceful Streets Project exists. Now, it did evolve out of Antonio personally being oppressed and personally being, falsely accused of spitting in the face of an officer. But that happened because he was standing up for a woman who was being abused. So if we want to deal with oppression as individuals, if we see it happening, we need to stand up. If it's happening to us, we need to stand up. And we just need to walk the stinking walk. And we need to reach out to those who are oppressed and make sure that they know what their rights are and how they can stand up for themselves. So, that's my comment on that.
Okay. We got 5 minutes left, so I want to try to get them in.
I'll be quick. I think Carla touched on it a little bit, that it is changing. I watched it from 2007 when I started working for Ron Paul as one of the only women on staff to now. It's changed much more rapidly than I expected. So I take heart, and I think also I'm encouraged by, and I don't, however you feel about structured campaigns and so forth, but the Youth for Paul, particularly in 2012, did an incredible job of recruiting women. We had some of the brightest young women I've ever met, and it's funny because now I'm getting to be one of the old ones. I'm like a den mother, but I mean, 21-year-old women that are not dumb. So, I mean, outside of this circle, I meet people, younger people are just, But they found these men and women that are the future of what's happening, and they're brilliant and they're diverse. I mean, it was the first time I saw a person, an Indian person, like from India. I'm from the South, so we just have to clarify. And then secondly, on what you were asking, my principle is to remember my why as opposed to what I'm doing. And the why for me is like, I want to enjoy my life more. I want to, my nieces and nephews to maybe live in a more free world, a free U.S. And that part, keeping that separate and saying, look, and when it's my why time, like I'm spending time with my family or whatever it is your why you care about liberty, that doesn't get intermingled with what you're doing as activism or remember to have fun, remember to enjoy your relationships, and sometimes being a good friend, a good daughter, a good whatever, that's what I am. I'm a friend and a daughter and an aunt or whatever. I lost it. But the point is keeping your why separate and remembering that it's less important to be perfect in your philosophy than it is to enjoy life. Like, that's the whole point, right? We want to be free. Why? To enjoy life, enjoy our people. So that was my separation comment.
Hi, I know the poll you're talking about before PorcFest, and if my memory serves me correctly, I voted for 3 people who I'd like to see speak here. It was Hans Hermann Hoppe, Stefan Kinsella. I don't remember the third one. It was a male. No, ignoring troll. We did some troll answers. My question to you is, let's say next year before PorcFest there's an equal poll. Let's say, for argument's sake, I'm going to vote for 3 people. Putting everyone, if you give everyone a 10 in the one pot cook-off, it's meaningless. If I'm going to vote for 3 people and I'm torn between a man and a woman, would you like me to be blind with respect to gender to the extent where I might vote for 3 men, or should I be conscious of your issue and maybe do a little mental affirmative action? It seems like you're taking the results of this poll that 97% were men as evidence that there's discrimination. There might not be. If I own a law firm, I'm hiring the best lawyers I have. If it's 99% white men, I wouldn't. What were our options? No, you can add your own. You can add your own. That's why we're adding like Hitler and stuff just to fuck around. But ignoring that. Ignoring that, like I added Hans Hoppe. I think Kinsella was already there. I voted for Kinsella. But it seems like I'm getting a mixed message from you. On the one hand, you're bemoaning that women are underrepresented and they're not looked at as just regular libertarians. They're looked at as commodified. And then you're having a panel about women in the liberty movement. It seems, and I want to be convinced otherwise. I don't want to be the asshole misogynist. I really don't. But I also, no, I don't. It's not intentional. I honestly don't. If you convince me that there's not a sort of, you could square it. It seems like, if I have a chess club and it's.
She wasn't even on the fucking list.
Wendy and Mary, either way, I did vote for more men than women. I voted for more men than women.
Good. I didn't see it by the time I got through the other 97 men's names. I'm sorry, but I didn't see it. No, you should not treat them with kid gloves. But I'm suggesting that maybe some men, just maybe sometimes, look at women other than just looking at them. They have brains. So I'm thrilled that the young girls that she's talking about are coming into the liberty movement. I just want them to still be heard when they're 30 and when they're 40 and they're not wearing a bikini. That's all I'm saying. And if you don't want to, you just want to pay attention to the ones in bikinis, totally fine with me. I'll just try to make more panels where those women, other women, are available for people to talk to.
I agree that if you feel like you're learning from someone, that's who you should listen to. I also think that as a movement, we need to do better about empowering strong females to be leaders. Now, there is an organization, I passed around flyers, called Lola. They're pretty DC-centric right now, but they are doing a lot of empowerment-style trainings, whether it's teaching women how to speak, public speaking in front of groups. Last year, we had 19 cities do concealed firearm training for women, and we found instructors who did those trainings for free. So there are things going on to empower women to be bigger leaders. And I would just say, if in your local circles, one thing you can do is encourage women who have, an articulate mind to maybe speak more in front of city council, et cetera, et cetera. We had a young woman in Austin, Texas, who was part of the leadership group in Texans for Accountable Government, but she didn't really do a lot of public speaking. And we did some like internal surveys about each other, and everyone said, we want to hear Heather speak more. We want to hear Heather speak more. Next thing you know, this girl's in front of city council railing against the city hall. She's on the local news all over the place, and now she's the executive director of Texans for Accountable Government. So sometimes just encouraging your peers to step up will give them the guts to do it, and you will see more and more women step up and become those leaders that you're interested in speaking. So maybe the list will change next year, and it'll have 15 more women on it, and the next year, you know, a dozen more, and it'll keep growing. But that's our responsibility as a movement, to empower each other and to give each other the courage to just get up and do it.
Well, I also think that when there are women getting up and saying, oh, stop it. Jeff, I love you. Stop, Jeff. All right, yeah. Oh, yeah, I want to address your question. I want to make fun of him because I love him. He actually said, when I said, how do I get more people to the Women in Liberty panel? He actually said to me, oh, that's easy. Just all be naked.
And I would say to that, be careful what you wish for, right? But later, I can't remember why I came up here, but somebody over at the end there said something, and I had this great response, and now I've forgotten what it was totally, but it was something about some oppression by men, or what offended us most by men, sort of thing. And what I thought was, and that men needed to be empowered to think better than they do, or something like that. And I thought, well, wow, here, great, in New Hampshire, we have a perfect opportunity. All these women here setting an example of what we do. I've gone through a lifetime of being with libertarians where all I'm doing is sitting around making some executive committee decision with a bunch of other white guys, you know? And they asked me to go get coffee, right? And I do. And then if you do that enough times, then you become the president of the group. But what I really meant to say was, that's how life is for libertarians, or it was for me as I was growing up as a female or woman libertarian. Here, I don't have that at all. I have so much freedom here in New Hampshire because I can do exactly what I want to do. I don't have to go get coffee. And no, I live in, but there are so many women. That's what I think. As we are role models. We who are here, you guys are my role models. And I hope all of us here, women included, feel we live our lives as role models. And the more the guys get to see these role models, probably the more they'll like them, I would think, you know, because we're liberty people.
That's exactly. And we have to wrap it up because it's 1 o'clock, and that was exactly my point. You know, it's not about collectivism. It's not about that thing. It's about elevating other women. And let somebody else speak. It's 1 o'clock. Yeah, totally.
Sorry. We'll let you go. I just want to say one thing. I think there's also an onus on us as leaders in the movement to think about creating a body of work, writing more. I know for myself, you know, making sure there's a reason why, you know, he wants to see Kinsella. It's because he's written some books and, you know, he has his shtick down, or, well, I mean, I'm sure you are. And that's okay. But I think, I think the takeaway that people, particularly women, and I think this is really for all of us, is it's up to us, right? If you want to get heard, I mean, people have heard my story where I'm like, I used to throw up every time right before someone was going to put a microphone in my hand. I did not like public speaking. And I was just like, well, I'm going to challenge myself. Like, I want to grow. I want to grow every year. I want to grow every day. And so I would say the challenge to all of us is, remember, your story may resonate with one other person. So get your story out there. Do your YouTubes. Write your things. Do your blogs. I like to cook. You know, I do a lot of cooking. And I was so happy when this year, instead of people being like Queen Quill, people were like, can I come eat at your house one day, you know? And I was like, wow, okay, food is a way to reach people, and it was not a message that I thought, you know, would be my platform. And, you know, and I can throw down with the IP lawyers. I mean, I can have that debate, and I want to. So the challenge that I'm giving myself is, you know, start to write on the topics that we know a lot about, because I think for a lot of guys, they're like, it's all like touchy-feely, and why am I really going to listen to them? Because what's really intellectual here, or what have I learned? I mean, I think what we've learned is that sometimes we communicate in a different way, and we want to, you know, be heard. But then it's also, let's create bodies of work where people can go, this is what they stand for. I want to go listen to this woman because she knows everything about, you know, childbirth and what's the word? Midwifery. You know, it's a topic maybe not everyone wants to go to, but they'll learn. So we should do that as well. A challenge to women leaders. And if you're not a leader yet and you're like, hey, I want to be up there on stage in 5 years' time, start doing that and find your niche and build a platform without bikinis.
I'll be super, super brief. I gotta go get my daughter. We need to make events more family friendly, okay? It's hard being a mom. Okay. All right, I have to run to go deal with my daughter, but seriously, you know, we're getting young women into the movement through Ron Paul, et cetera, et cetera. Those women are going to start coupling off with Liberty dudes. We're all going to have babies. And this has been the most exhausting, miserable PorcFest for me because I'm constantly dealing with 2 children. So as a community, as we start reproducing, we need to be there for each other. Someone needs to step up and say, hey, let me watch your toddler so you can take a shower, take a shit, go brush your teeth. You know, it's really, really hard. So, you know, if you want more women in the movement, help each other, become a community. It takes a village. I don't have a family that supports my way of life. You all are my family, and I need you to help me, or I am never coming to PorcFest again. I'm exhausted. So that's what I have to say.
Well, thanks for coming in. All right, we'll have another question.
And I walked in a little bit late, so I missed the first part of your speech, but you were talking on women not being heard. We all know, obviously, there's more men than women that are, you know, out there and, I guess, famous libertarians, what have you. But I think it's total bullshit to say that women aren't heard. There are several women, and it's growing every day. Julie Borowski, for example, has hundreds and thousands of followers. She's extremely smart. I don't think she's ever worn a fucking bikini. So I think it's actually pretty belittling of you to say that that's the only way that they're associated. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but to act like there's still this like hurdle that women are only objects and we're not listened to, that's crap. That's all I have to say.
Okay, have you ever spent any time reading her comments section, by the way, by the libertarian men? It's men. Okay, that's fine. I do actually like her. And she is the token libertarian girl, and she's smart, she's wonderful, and I think I have repeatedly said that I'm not trying to diss just those women. And if that's a way a woman chooses to be seen, I have no problem whatsoever. Okay, but the men are choosing to look at her oftentimes for that purpose, which is fine. You can't, and that's fine. You can't, and that is fine. My point is to have more women talk. But it's funny. It's actually funny. Whenever I talk about this, it's mostly the women that rip me for it. By hands down, I get ripped by more women for talking about women in liberty and how I want more women to be heard and how I respect other women that aren't necessarily. But it's me. It's fucking me, too. I'm a woman. And I do get listened to, and I'd like other women to be able to get listened to. And you know what? How many times, like I said, I've gotten added to. I'm a 40-year-old woman. I'm not going to be, great forever. But I have, added to sexy groups, or would you pose for this, or would you do for that? And that's like one of the biggest things that I've gotten over the years as I started to talk about liberty. Not just libertarian. That's the way it is on the internet and like in life. Okay, so we should not try to address that. So should we just pretend that that's a non-issue? If it's not an issue for you, it's not an issue for you. It is for me, so I'm trying to... It is.
I would say let's take this debate elsewhere, but let Teresa.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you can tell like your story and how you got involved with.
Okay, so I'm a little nervous to get up and talk, right? I'm actually shaking because this isn't easy to get up and talk about this stuff. But I'm new to activism. 2 years is about how long I've been doing it. I was a sales rep and a drug rep for 16 years before that. So it's not like I haven't had to get up and talk in front of people. Activism was the first time that I noticed that I was being excluded in groups where there were men, where I would be in conversations and men would just talk over me like I wasn't even there. And I was also asked to have sex with strangers all the time, and that had never happened to me before. So that was only when I started as an activist. And I'm only speaking for myself and from my own perspective when I'm speaking. I do see that there is an issue with the way that women are treated in general in the world, and yeah, in the liberty movement, yeah. But the liberty movement, to be honest, I just came from All Expo where I did a talk on the need for empathy in order to actually succeed in this liberty dream that we're all trying, and reality we're trying to create. Now that doesn't mean that I think that you shouldn't vote for the people that you want to have come speak. If it's men that you want to have come speak, absolutely. But that doesn't change the reality that there wasn't even women on the list, and the number of women on the list was not, you know. So I mean, and that's just my perspective, you know. And it's not, and to call out what we perceive as reality doesn't mean that what you're saying isn't, that you should somehow change what you're doing. But just being aware that there's obviously a woman here who feels that way, and now there's two, and maybe there's more, and maybe trying to kind of talk to people as individuals and not necessarily feel like somebody's calling you I don't know where the misogynist thing came from, but yeah, oh, okay. So maybe, you know, I don't think you're a misogynist if you don't say change your expectations based on. Oh. Yeah. But yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, and that could be it. Well, it could be that, but this wasn't in the Liberty Movement. This was in Occupy, and then it transferred over to the Liberty Movement. I can only share with you what my perspective is, but that's my perspective and it's real. But to be fair, I mean, you're such a lesbian, damn it.
Yeah, I think that was probably a pretty good spot to end it. But it looks like somebody else wants to say something.
So there's a theme that I've kind of heard, and correct me if I haven't heard this, but that men need to do something different. I'm wondering what women can do that. So I mean, I just hear your comment, like, you know, men are talking over me. So what? Yeah, and what's wrong with that? Okay, so is that an acceptable solution? Okay. As a man, I would really appreciate that. You know, I just want to hear what women have to say, and if someone's not hearing me, it's not because they necessarily don't care about them. Maybe it's because they don't care about me. But as a human being, I feel like it's my duty to assert my power as an individual in any conversation. I think women are just as capable, and I want to see women. I mean, I can't give a woman any power. I can't do that as a man. And I can't take it away, that's right. And I can't give anybody anything. And it's what I just wanted to offer is that claim it. You know, it's yours. It's there. It's never been taken away. And it's there. Exactly. So any comments on that? Any thoughts about that?
I'll just talk in general about my profession. I'm a carpenter. I've been in construction for like 19 years, but and I work on jobs with all men, and I first started out working on all women construction crews, which was really awesome, but time moves on. You end up working at other companies along the way, but I've worked with all men crews, and as a woman, I have never been hassled by a guy on a job. When I show up, I can speak the language, I can do the geometry, I can, run the tools and everything. And, to their credit, to this day, I have never been hassled by a man on a job. So I'll just say that.
I mean, I've had more trouble in the workplace, and not just Ron Paul, but other places I've worked, where I had to be about twice as vocal to be heard by my male boss. But I don't know if that's liberty, if that's just working with men in the workplace. But I just, I think someone made the point earlier, be yourself. I mean, and I think we're into individualism, but it is part of who I am to be a woman. So I do take that into consideration, and that I may need to do something different, because I can't change someone else, but I need to fight for my own. And there is a delicate balance in being an asshole or being an assertive, a person that asserts themselves and tries to make a niche, a place for themselves. So that's an everyday balance. Be a nice person, be respectful, but sometimes you do have to fight a little bit, or push back. I don't like the word fight, because it wasn't like that, but I had to sort of be proactive to make a niche for myself. And I think part of that was, it was the natural thing for men to garner that in each other. So I don't know. I didn't know this was going to be this controversial.
I did. And it always is. It's... And I'm not, and I really am not saying you men, you all have to think differently. If you want to check just men, I'm by far. I know, but if those happen to be just men, I think is my point. I don't care. Understood. Yes. So it's not that's not the thing. That's why like I said, a number of years ago, all I was doing, I felt like, was complaining about women not being heard, and I wanted blah, 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 blah. So what I did is I went, okay, well, then I'm going to go and speak. And even though I hate talking in front of people, and I'm going to practice, I'm going to do a little one, I'm going to do another little one, and hopefully, eventually, I'll do fairly well at it. And I don't like it, but I want to hear more women. So what I'm trying to do here is, and what I tried to do with this panel, is I want these women to be, I think these women are awesome. That's why I had them come here. So I wanted to present an opportunity for some other women to be heard. And I want people in the audience that are women that are maybe even just thinking about it a little bit, go, please do it. Please get out there and talk. Think about exactly what Carla says. It does not have to be, it doesn't have to be liberty in general. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It could be what you're interested in, and use that as a way to reach people and a way to talk about liberty. Or, there's every single thing in our lives could certainly manifest into some way of talking about liberty, and then more women are being heard. That's all I am talking about. Does anybody else want to say anything before we wrap it? Because we finished a while ago.
So I agree with my boyfriend Jeremiah back there in the blue shirt. So as a woman, in all my relationships with men, I would be like, the one, not the powerful one, not the dominant one in the relationship. And I always sort of blame that on my partner. Oh, he's taking all my power away, And then, so this is not a plug for the organizations that we're a part of, but we're very active. He's active in something called the Mankind Project, and I'm active in a project called Women Within, which is really sort of going down deep inside and looking at our own shadows, if you will. And that's really given me the opportunity to take back my own power. And I feel more comfortable, therefore, standing up in front of people because I've done my own fucking work on myself. And that's a personal responsibility thing. And so I would really encourage women to be a part of other women's circles and do their own shadow work, going to counseling, so forth. And that really helps.
Thank you. Because this is really about not trying to have women having power. There's that quote, and just because I want to say it, I forgot who said it. But beautiful writer, and she says that it's not. She doesn't want to have power. Doesn't want women to have power over men, but women to have power over themselves. And that's something that so strikes my heart, because it's not as though I want to boss anybody around. I don't want to tell men they have to do this or that. I just want women to feel confident enough and feel good about themselves and understand that they do have a voice. And if nobody else wants to hear, I want to hear it. So you come talk to me, because I want to hear what you have to say. And I want to hear what you, and seriously, all of you. But anyway, I think that's it. I think we're all good? All right. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Why do we sit down when all should be standing? And why do we back down at the critical moment, like running away from the waves of the ocean? We head for the hills with the high tide approaching, as sand slips away from the castle. When it's time to stand upright, why do we falter, like placing our freedom on the sacrificial altar? We hold tight to our fears and defend our oppressors, as we fight for their lives and become the transgressors. As